Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday. It's February 8th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and it is Thursday, so this will be our last chart lesson for the week. We don't do them on Fridays for anybody new. I know I say that a lot, but we always have new people coming in and out, and inevitably somebody will ask me why I didn't do where the chart lesson is from Friday. So I always like to mention it. So if it feels like I say it a lot, I do, but there's a reason for it. So. No chart lessons on Fridays. I try to get out of here by lunch on Fridays. A lot of work goes into doing this video every day. People don't realize how much work it is, but it takes a couple hours out of my day every day. So after years and years of doing this, 5 days a week was just too much. So I've cut it back to just 4 days a week, and I try to get out of here early on Fridays now. So that's the reason. Nothing other than that. But like I said, a lot of work goes into doing these things, and um, so I just need a break occasionally. But anyway, as we look here today, um, here's the day. No movement at all, really. I mean, there's really no change. There's a real tight range again today. Of course, we had a big up day, so no surprise. We may get another one, and then next thing you know, it'll shoot up again. So we might even get a sell off of some kind. But this market does not want to go anywhere but up, and so but you can see really weak trading day. I mean, that's basically nothing for a daily chart. I mean, the amount of movement's very little. When we flip over there, you'll see that. Not many trades. This is, I keep saying this. Some people don't, I don't know if they miss it or they just don't listen. But this is hard trading. So if you're struggling to find trades, it's because it's hard. It's just choppy sideways stuff that'll chop you all to pieces. And the only way to trade a range like this is to have consistent lows or consistent highs, and you trade those. When the prices get to them in reverse, you trade it. But today, I think it was yesterday that all the consistent uh, points on the range were on the lows. Today, it was all on the highs. Nothing on the lows. They were inconsistent. But let's flip over there, and you can see what I'm talking about, and uh, we can talk about it a little more from there. But here's today's chart, and you can see it's about a 10-point range. And of course, they drove it up when the volume gets thin late in the afternoon, they run it up. We did sell off some, but we still closed, very near the highs from yesterday. I mean, we closed maybe down a point and a half or something here. So no real change. And this was just there's nothing here consistent that's easy to trade. Now, like I said, the highs were a little more consistent. Uh, but there's no consistency down here on the lows. It's just hard to trade. So not much you can do about it. You just have to be patient or close up and go home. Go. I always tell people, don't be afraid. I can remember when I first started trading, you feel like you got to trade every day and you can't miss a day and you got to find a trade. Over time, you'll learn this is a job. It'll start to feel like a job, and you'll start to treat it like a job, and you'll look forward to a day off. And when you have a bad trading day, the worst thing you can do is sit here and fight it and force trades and take a loss. You'd be better off just to close up and go home and take no trade at all, because no, you don't make any money, but you don't lose any money. And what will happen to most people is they'll get frustrated here and they'll see a big move and then they'll decide they're going to take a trade, and guess what? It's running the other direction and they got chopped up, and then they flip flop and it flips on them again, and they end up getting chopped up, and they take 2 or 3 losses in a few minutes, and then they're done. They've had a horrible day, and sometimes that leads to more losses because most new traders, most unskilled traders don't have the fortitude and the discipline to say, okay, I've hit my loss today. They get mad and they want to try to make it back, and it just leads to more losses, and next thing you know, you've blown an account. Somebody here is probably saying, yep, sounds just like me. I'll get an email tomorrow and say, Mac, you were talking directly to me. I should have listened. But how do I know these things? Because I've been there. I've done it. I see it still happen every day to new traders. And you can get past that. Is it easy? No. But the most important part of trading, so much of what we do is psychological. So you have to be very disciplined, and you have to be very patient. And if it means you sit here for hours without taking a trade, That's the difference between a professional and an unskilled trader. Unskilled traders looking for an entry on every flipping swing they see here. Every single one of them. They try to enter one way or the other. They don't realize that you have to, on a range day, we trade range rules. What do we do on range rules? You look for the consistent resistance and you try to trade it if you get a setup, or you look for this consistent support and you try to trade it when you get a setup. And there's not any today. So you don't see any longs down here all day because there's no consistent turning point. There's nothing that gives you confidence that you can trade it, so you just ignore it. The only other thing you can do on days like this is sometimes if you get a trend, you can trade the trend. But this is only 10 points here, so there's not going to be many trends and they're not going to be very long. So most of your trades are going to be off the support or off the resistance, or you're not going to get any trades. Right down here in the middle is where you got to be very careful, because you see what happens. Sometimes it pushes on through, sometimes it just reverses on you. And it chops up, chops around. It's difficult trading. Trust me when I tell you that. It's difficult for even skilled traders because you got to be patient. You got to sit there and wait, because there's nothing that guarantees you if you buy any of this, you're going to be right. In fact, most of the time you're going to get chopped up. So just understand that. But let's, there was a news item at 7:30 this morning, the unemployment claims. Be flat for that. You can see it rallied the market a little bit, didn't last long. So you need to be flat about 7:15 or so and wait for it to kind of slow down. And you can see it didn't affect it a whole lot. I mean, this is not anything crazy. This is not much difference than when we traded down here. So by the time we're topping out here, it's pretty much back to normal. And you can see we got a nice strong trend working up real tight. And you get a close outside and you get a first entry, tries to go lower, fails, turns up. And so when it breaks above right there, you get a second entry long. That's a good place to enter. It looks a little congested. If you skip this because of that, that's fine. I wouldn't blame you. But there is a little bit of a trap when it broke lower there, turned up. It took it a few minutes. Notice it comes back again and gives you a higher low. And if you didn't enter over here, I'd probably enter here because it'll probably take on off and down. And you can see you end up getting your close outside the green channel and you get two legs up to a new high. I didn't draw this one. Somebody asked me that today. You know, I don't draw every single little trend line, but there's a correction right here. And you notice you draw it. You need at least 3 bars, trending bars, to draw a trend line. If you don't have 3 bars, you can't really get a trend. So you want to have at least 3 bars. Well, you got it right there. You actually have 4 or 5. But notice what happens. You get a close outside, a move to a new low, and it reverse. So that's telling you it's okay. You know, now you're headed to make a retest, or maybe you're going to get another trend up. I didn't draw them. It may be a measured move here, because that's a 2-legged correction. And you can see that's pretty much what you got, a perfect measured move there. It comes back here. Somebody actually took a trade right here, and it worked, but this is not a good setup here. Notice this high, and you get a first entry. Well, when it broke above that red bar, there's your second entry, and he was counting this as a second entry. Well, that's a third entry by the time it breaks higher there. And you got a lot of resistance without much room. Luckily, it worked, but that's not a very good setup. That's just congestion after a break and a new high. You've already got a new high there, so this thing could turn down. It ends up going higher. It worked. I'm glad that it worked for him because I think he took a live trade, but it's not a great trade. And if this would have been a nice red bar, maybe you go short there, because you can see we've turned down there multiple times earlier. But you don't get a signal bar, so it runs down. And again, you get a break outside. And this thing tried to go lower multiple times and couldn't. There's no entries in there. Don't try to enter that. It ends up working higher. And you do have a trend here, but I don't see any entries there that I would want to take. You get what looks like a little overshoot here, but can you be certain that's an overshoot? Not really. I believe it's an overshoot, because if you draw it all the way up here, you're turning down without touching the line. And that's how you know you got your line in the right place. When you put it right there, notice how that's holding prices neatly. It runs up to the high, it touches, it turns down. It runs down to the low, it touches, it turns up. Runs up to the high, it touches, it turns down. That's how your price action should look inside your channel. If your channel's like this and it's turning and it's before it gets to the line, it's not right. There's something not correct with your trend channel. It should hold prices neatly, and that right there holds prices neatly. So to me, I believe that's an overshoot, which we could just get a reversal. But I'm still not willing to take that short there with all that sideways action. It's close to whether or not that's really congestion. It could just be that we're running out. There's still a little buy momentum and we're about to run out. But you're still inside that trend. You've never closed outside of it, so I'm not going to risk it. I'm going to let this play out. Notice it runs down. You get a break, and you finally get a second entry here with a triple test, and then you run down and test that low. That's a great setup there. It actually breaks higher, fails, and turns down. I like going short on the engulfing bar. You got an easy triple test right there. It breaks higher. You get that fail, that little trap. That's a great setup right there. And then and then notice what happens after you get that leg down. You get a little two-legged correction there, and then a lower high. Technically, that's not a second entry because it makes a new low, but that's still two legs back, but it shoots through the EMA, so I wouldn't take that trade. Wait for see if you get a lower high, and once again it breaks higher and turns and goes down. I wouldn't take that one on the engulfing bar. I'd definitely wait for it to close, and it did close above the EMA, so for that reason I still marked it green. But there's a good chance with that two-legged correction in there that you're going to get a measured leg like that, and sure enough, you actually get a little more than a measured leg, and it reverses again. Show that over and over. I show that to you all the time. The market moves in twos, and it moves in measured moves. Anybody tells you market geometry is not real, don't listen to anything else they got to say. It's very real. I show it over and over and over. And you just get a first entry here, so I don't think you can risk that. It's a little congested as well. Odds are it's going back to the EMA, but it's not a sure thing. It could break higher and come back down and stop you out, because we could still be headed down to here. Because look, we haven't turned anywhere consistently. You don't know where it's going to turn. So it's too risky going long. If we'd bounced there multiple times, by all means, we'd probably take that long. But it hadn't. That's the first time it's bounced there since, all day. That's the only time it bounced right there. Otherwise, it bounced lower or it bounced higher. So there's no information this chart is giving you to say that's a good place to buy. That's just a shot in the dark. And sure, yeah, it shoots straight up. And that's what will happen. People will see that thing shoot straight up, and they'll say, man, I knew I should have taken that trade, but there's no reason to take that trade. There's nothing on this chart that tells you that's a good trade. So follow the rules. There's a close outside and a new low, so there's a good chance it's going back to the EMA at least, but you just don't know that. Odds are it's probably headed down here. But no, it turns up, and where does it turn down again? Right up there at that same place. You do get a fairly bearish bar here, but you're inside this little trading range, and you close back inside it. You got a bunch of stem. There's not much room to the EMA. I just don't think you want to take that trade. Yeah, it ends up working, but too many times it'll break lower, trap you, and go up and stop you out and then turn down. Again, it's just not a sure thing. We do have a close outside the new high, but you need a better signal bar than that. And that's a pretty big bar, so you're risking, well, I say pretty big. It's really only 8 ticks, so you're going to risk 9 or 10 ticks on that. But I think you're better off to wait. It's just not a good setup. Runs down. Again, you get 2 legs back, but it's not a second entry. It looks a little congested again. Just wait. You're right into the midline, and it's starting to bounce there. I just don't see any way to trade that all the way down. It's just not a good setup. And then, of course, you bounce, and it bounces at another odd place. Nowhere it's getting closer to where it bounced before, but still not quite. So you just have to watch it. You just get a first entry here, but that's your signal bar. There is a second entry here, but this is your signal bar, and it's too bearish. And this is just an inside bar. So, and you're getting a break. It's right into the midline. There's just nothing there. You get the break. It moves to a new high. And then you get this one moving down, close outside, new low. Once again, it's turning it. It's not a good enough signal bar to trade anyway, but you do get your break and a new low, and then it reverses the other direction. Again, there's no consistency here to say, hey, this is a good place to buy. And it runs up, and now you're making a high in an odd spot. It's in between the previous highs and this high. So that's your first break, and you do get this little trend line working down. So you really can't go, even though there's a second entry short there, I don't recommend going short there. You do have a 2-bar matching high. If it had broke higher and failed and then turned down, maybe. But you see it try to go higher here. It ends up failing. But sometimes it'll make that next, just those extra, all it needed was an extra tick or two and you'd have got stopped out. And then it goes on down. So that's why you don't take these kind of trades, because a lot of times you'll get stopped out on them. But it works on down, close outside, it can't even make a new low, and it runs back up and makes another, it does make the new high on this green after all. And that's at a more consistent place, but you're still in this green channel, no break of it yet. So I'd wait and see if you get a lower high, which comes here. That's not a very good setup. But notice it runs up again. But now you got a failed second entry long and a lower high, and you got a nice signal bar with a 2-bar matching high. I like going a little short there now, because you got some consistency across there, and this is actually a lower high than this one. So I like that one. It's probably going to act as a trap. And you see it runs down really quick. And then you get a break of this channel, and you get a first entry, second entry after it breaks higher first and fails and traps and comes back down. So I don't know if I would trade that as an engulfing bar. It's pretty bullish, but there is a lot of stem to it. Usually you're more worried about doji type bars like this or like this. So you could trade that on an engulfing bar. With all that stem, though, I'd probably wait and just trade it once it closed. And then you got a lower high here, but no setup. And then suddenly it reverses again in another weird place and goes straight back up again. And this is what's so hard to trade about this. You got to be careful in this middle area. Runs up, gets closed outside, 2 legs to a new high, and takes you into 230. I don't see anything there that would prompt me to go short. Nothing down here that I want to go long. You got to go long right into the EMA there, right at the midline. It could just touch that and turn on down again. It's hard to know what's going on right in this middle part here. So there it is. Not many trades today. Hopefully you learned something. You have to learn how to trade these ranges, and I tried to explain it in a little more depth and a little more detail today. I tried to do that the last few days because we're seeing so much of this. The only way to trade this range is to get consistent resistance and trade that resistance on a good setup, or consistent support and trade that support on a good setup. And we didn't get any hardly support setups. We got a few resistance and we got a few with the trend. And if you get a good enough trend, you can trade those second entries and so forth. If you just be careful right in the middle. So there it is. Not the best trading day, but there's some trades in there. There were a couple of decent ones here early on. And then you really from maybe 9:15 or so all the way up till 1 o'clock, 1:20, 15, 1:20. Yeah, just sit there and watch it. Yeah, there's probably a green one or two in there, you could argue, but just be careful with those things. If it's not a sure thing, don't take it. And you lower your losing rate and improve your winning rate quickly by doing that. But that's what separates really professionals from amateurs, is just the ability to be disciplined and to sit for long periods of time and not do anything but just wait for the right setup. Professionals are not chasing a trade on every swing. And they can see these swings. They understand what prices are doing. And the amateur, that's just, you don't have any idea what prices are doing here. That's why I just wait. You don't have to be a chart reader to watch to see how many times it bounces down here at the same place or reverses up here at the same place. You don't have to be a professional to see that, but you have to wait on it and you have to get it and be disciplined and wait. And that's where most people fail. They cannot wait. They got to take a trade. I've got a trader I've talked to a few times, and I've told him every day that's congestion. Explained him, showed him congestion again, and he's drawn to that trade, and he just keeps taking it. Sometimes it works out for him, sometimes it doesn't. But if he just leave that congestion alone and wait on a good trade, he'd probably instantly improve his trading. But he tells me he fights it every day. He can't break that urge to take that trade. He skips the good trades and he enters the congested trade every single time. And I go over it every day with him, and he does the same thing again. So he's working on it. I get it. It's mental. It's hard. But if you want to be a trader, you got to beat that urge to. There's this little voice in your head that says, "Take this horrible trade. Take this horrible trade," and you take it and you get burned, and then you see a perfect setup, and then you're scared. That little voice says, we can find something wrong with this trade. But it doesn't take them but a minute to talk them into the bad trade, but they can't talk themselves into taking the good trade. And that's exactly what he said he struggles with. He actually pointed out the better trade that came about 3 bars later, and of course I agreed with him. That's where you should have entered. He said, well, I don't know why I couldn't enter that one. I skipped that one, but I took this one over here that was right in the congestion like usual. But I've been there. It's hard. It takes a while. It takes time. And some people can never do it. Some people are not, they don't have, I call it intestinal fortitude. It's like losing weight. Some people can, the only way to really lose weight is stop eating. Cut your calories and stop eating. Yeah, there's gimmicks here and there. You can lose a pound or two, but the only way you're going to truly ever lose weight is to be able to stop eating. And some people cannot do that. They just cannot do it. Their mind is not strong enough to fight that hunger urge. And if you could just do it for 3 or 4 days, you can eventually get there. But they can't even do it that long to get there. And trading's no different. It's a very similar urge to want to take a trade or to skip a trade. And you got to learn to fight that. And you got to learn to say, okay, just use my mind. My mind says, I'm reading this chart. The setup is there. There's a triple test, a great signal bar, right where I'm expecting prices to turn down. I'm going with it. Or, yep, there's a setup, looks okay, it's really congested. I better skip it. And then they can't, or whatever. So you got to get to the point where you can see it and then get your mind to act on it, no matter how bad that urge is to do something different. That's the difference between winning and losing. And so you got to find that intestinal fortitude and be able to get your mind stronger than your desires. That's really the bottom line. And is it easy? No. Can some people do it? A lot. Some people can, some people can't. But find a way to figure out how to make it happen for you. That's what you got to do. All right, that's enough for today. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.